4.3.9, construct algorithms using loops, branching. First thing to mention is that at this point, still in topic 4, this is at the algorithms stage, and I will have notes, algorithmic notes, but the videos are for not just reinforcing and showing algorithms in real code. They are for teaching you to program, which you'll need for the OOP unit and your IA. So let's do this in 2 parts. One, I'll just do the loops individually, and in the second video I'll put it all together in one fairly basic but complete and involved program. So let's start with loops just individually. Okay, there are 3 kinds of loops. For loop, you don't even know what a loop is yet, but hang on. For loop, while loop, and the do while loop. And I think it might be easier to jump into the while loop first, in fact. So the idea with a loop is usually programs run sequentially, line 9, line 10, line 11, line 12, they go straight down through. But at certain times we want to make the decision to repeat things. For example, if I were changing all the colors of the pixels on the screen as is happening right now, well, that's a lot of pixels by a lot of pixels. So every one of those pixels has to change. So I would loop across the row of pixels up here and the next row of pixels and so on. So I'm looping, I'm repeating. To repeat, we need a variable which will control the repetition. So let's do a Boolean continue loop. It starts at true. So the while loop looks like this. It's while, and then the condition, which is this. Doesn't need to evaluate, it just is true or false. In this case, it's true. While a certain condition is true, do stuff. So right now we have an infinite loop, and I will run it and just force quit it to show you that it'll just go on forever, because it says while continue loop, print out that again, 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 again. I'll put in a counter just to be clear about what's going on. Let's just go, and then I'll get rid of it, but just to show you, int counter starts at 0. I'll make the counter go up by 1 each time. And we'll not just print out that, but we'll print out the counter, so you can see that indeed it does go on forever. Right? And I can't stop it other than to, and since you're going to be doing loops pretty soon, check out this. In NetBeans, to cancel an infinite loop, click on that. So the idea is, with a loop, that the conditional loop control variable needs to work toward or somehow get to and become the false condition. So I think the easiest way to do this, the way that you classically do it, is by asking the user, do you want to continue? So we're going to be dealing with the user, so let's right up at the top give ourselves our BReader, which we're going to need to interact with the user to take in input. So what we'll do at the bottom here is we'll say to the user, do you want to continue? True, false, which we can convert into the Boolean true or false. So we'll take that in as the continue loop variable. Is a sign, need to convert it. The br.readline. So let's run it, and we should expect that while continue loop, which is true, so that'll at least go once, counter goes up to 1 from 0. It's going to print out that plus 1. Let's put a space. And then it's going to say, do you want to continue? It's going to wait for our input, and we're going to type true. So continue loop will still be true. So we'll go back up, check the condition again. Is continue loop true? Yeah, it still is. Counter goes up to 2. We print out ASDF true. Do you want to continue? True. And so on until at some point we type false. When we type false, that string false will be converted into a boolean, false, F-A-L-S-E, and continue loop will no longer be true. It will be false. So this says while that's true, continue. So since it's false, it'll stop. And why don't we just go down here and say loop ended. Do you want to continue? True. 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 And I'll go to false at this point. A-L-S-E. And it ended. So that's the while loop, and the condition can get more complex, but that's basically the structure of the while loop. While a certain condition do stuff, at some point the condition has to become false, in which case you exit the loop. So that's the while. Do while is only slightly different in that you check the condition at the bottom. So I'll change this into being a do while loop. True. We don't need the counter, really. So do is the key word. Oh, we'll put in a counter. Why not? Just to show that it works exactly the same way. What are we doing now? So do next what was the next line? Do you want to continue? Take it in as this variable. So the way you finish off the do while is you do the while at the bottom. While that variable. So the only slight difference, for now anyway, that we'll look at between the while and the do while is that the do while is always entered once. Even if this were to start off false, just to prove it, it's still going to be entered once. And let me just comment this completely so we don't confuse the two. And now we'll run it. Before we run it, we'll do a talk through. So, boolean, another continue variable is false. A variable called counter1 is 0. Do, counter1 plus plus, so it becomes 1. And we print out the counter1. We asked if they want to continue. And so even though it was false, we still do this at least once. And we say true, and it becomes true, and so we check the condition at the bottom. While this is true, continue. We keep on while true, 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 same as above, until we type false. Yeah, I printed it out before asking the question. Makes sense. True, true, and so on until false. So basically it works almost identically. It's just that there are some times where even without checking the condition, you want to do the thing once. A password entry is a classic example for that. It's really not that big of a deal, and 90% of the time you're going to see the while loop. But for what it's worth a bit, I would say, because these are absolutely fundamental structures. For what it's worth, the while loop is the one that you see usually. While condition, do stuff, eventually change the condition so that the while loop ends. And finally then, we'll look at the for loop, the third way of looping, which is the most common. And a for loop, literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not billions of times per day across all tablets and devices and processors in the world, happens. All programming languages have it, and it looks like this. If you want to repeat something a certain number of times, you go. And we'll say 10 times. Making the output a little bit fancy here, and yeah, so that's it. It looks a little bit strange, but that is it. From the 0th to the 9th time. Because do notice that we start our numbering at 0 as long as I is less than 10. But that does give us 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, because we started at 0. Right? So that's it. This is the starting point of the counter. This is the condition to continue. And this is how we eventually reach the limit of that condition. And so really, the three important things appear both places. This is the loop control variable. We check it at this line, and eventually it changes. Here's the loop control variable. We check it, or we initialize it. Every time through the loop, we check it, and we change it each time through the loop, so that sooner or later the condition will not be true. So if you were just to follow my mouse, it's a little bit different the way that it works, but this is the way it would be. First time through, I starts at 0. Is I less than 10? Yes. Go in, do this. I goes up by 1, so I is 1. Check the condition again. So that only gets done at the very, very beginning. Check the condition again. Is 1 less than 10? Yes. Do this. I goes up to 2. Is 2 less than 10? Yes. Do this. I goes up to 3. So on and so on and so on until is I less than 10? Sorry, is 10 less than 10? No. So we end the loop and we continue on. I better stop this here and do conditional blocks in a second video.